We got a big one tonight. It's an early game, not Christmas yet, but it's Sixers Heat.
It's a big game.
It's a big game for this. Sixers 14 straight at home. This is a potential second round, I think, playoff matchup.
I would say right now all signs are pointing to that. Yes.
And they bombed the Heat the last time.
They did. So Jimmy Butler, I think, is feeling himself a little bit right now, as he should be. He's got the Miami Heat playing well. They come back into town. See what happens. Yeah. I'd love for the 76ers. It's not a huge deal.
I'll be there tonight, so I don't want a blowout. I want a good game.
Of course you do. But I'd love to see them undefeated at home going into that Christmas Day matchup.
83% get booed. 17 cheers for Jimmy Buckets.
Only 83%?
What are you doing, booing or cheering them?
I'm not going to do either, but I think that it's going to be a lot of boos. A lot of boos.
Yeah, I think way different from the first time they played. That article changed a lot.
Yeah.
Keith Smith, Yahoo Sports, NBA, Sixers, Heat tonight. A lot of NBA stuff going on. He'll drop the knowledge right now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline, as he does each week at this time. Keith Smith, what's up, my man?
Hey, guys. How are you?
All is well. We got Sixers Heat tonight. Let me ask you about this Heat team first before we get into some Sixers stuff. I saw them about 4 or 5 times this year before I was like, you know what? I think this team's top 5 East. I really like them. Very athletic. How surprising have they been to you?
I had the same opinion coming into the season. I thought they were going to be a pretty good team. I thought they had all the pieces last year, but what they were missing was a guy like Jimmy Butler, someone who could take the ball at the end of games, make plays for himself, for others, be in those good scoring positions. And they were just really missing with the guys that they had last year. So I think this really is a nice roster balance. You're not going to find a team in the league that plays harder than them night in and night out. They just really get after it. And they've done all that they've done so far in the start to the season, despite being really banged up and injured. I don't know that they've had their core lineup together at all for even a single game this season.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you project them down the road here, what's the ceiling for this team? Are they a team that could win the East the way this East is situated, or more a second-round team?
Yeah, probably more of a second-round team. Maybe if everything breaks right, they could make the conference finals. I think they're still in a tier, despite the way things look right now, behind Philadelphia, behind Boston, and obviously behind Milwaukee. But I think they're right there in that 4-5 range with Indiana as another team in that group. So I think they're going to be a really tough team the entirety of the season. It's just going to be really dependent on how much can they put together and can they get healthy, because that's going to be really important for them. They don't have a ton of depth when they are down 3 and 4 key guys. That gets really hard on them because the real back end of their roster is pretty weak. So, but it all really depends on matchups and how things break come playoffs. But they're probably a guy or two shy of winning the East, but I think they can really still make some noise.
Yeah, we'll see if they're in the trade market for someone to improve this roster. Sixers, obviously, on the other hand, 14-0 at home. We kind of know their story in terms of where they are. Let me ask you about, in terms of Embiid and Simmons and Horford, do you think that the core that they have right now, and Tobias Harris, obviously, that group that they have right now, is that team playoff fitting, in terms of once you get to the playoffs with what they're trying to do, and when you watch them, do you look at that team and project them into the playoffs and say, I like the way they fit together come playoff time? Or is it still a little clunky for you and they're just winning right now because they're more talented?
I like the way they fit come playoff time because of their defense. I think that's going to be there night in, night out. They can really count on that to be very good. What I still worry about is the offense. And it's funny because a lot of people say, well, in the playoffs, I might only need to score 95 points to win. But it gets harder. It's already hard for them at times to create offense, especially late in games. We've seen them throw the ball all over the gym with regularity in those fourth quarters. So that's what I worry about is do they have one more creator who could really get some stuff done for them? Now, if they get there, that they'll figure that out, and that'll be something that'll work out fine for them. But it's finding that guy, and there's a chance maybe that guy is Ben Simmons. Those games when he's really aggressive and looks to make plays as a scorer and isn't just passive and kind of bring it up, get it in to the set, and then he drifts around the perimeter. When he's really aggressive and plays, they're a completely different offensive team, and they're going to need that for them to reach their ceiling in the playoffs.
Yeah, Keith, and I agree with you, but why does it always feel like Simmons is having those aggressive games as a scorer when Embiid's either having an off night or he's literally off that night, not playing?
Yeah, sometimes you have to wonder, does he know I have to do this tonight? And on the nights when Embiid's in there, he obviously needs his touches. He's going to get his somewhere between 15 and 20 shots a night. And then you want to make sure Tobias Harris is getting his 12 to 15 shots. You want to make sure Horford gets his touches. So I think on those nights when Embiid is there, Simmons says, all right, hey, I'm going to be the playmaker. I'm just going to do things. I'll get a set. I'll focus on my defensive game. But then when the nights when Embiid's not there, I think he knows, all right, hey, we don't have a ton of offensive weapons, so I've got to raise my game to a new level and become a scorer. So I think that's what you're wondering. Now, what I want to see is in the playoffs, can he be that guy who says, hey, it's winning time, get me the ball, I'm going to make a play either for myself or I'm going to find a teammate, and we're going to get this thing done.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like he's ever done that, like ever. Even during those games without Embiid or those nights that he does have 20, 25, even close to 30 points, it seems like a lot of it's in transition, which is he's still aggressive. He gets ahead of steam and he's going for the rim, and there's really no way to stop it. But when he has that aggressiveness, it's usually not in the half-court set. He usually never really demands the ball, and for a lot of the reasons that you listed. But we've been talking a lot about it on the show. I want to see him as the number one or number two scorer mindset, that mentality. And I don't know if Brett Brown is making it any easier for him. Do you see anything like that with the system and how Brett Brown is running things?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. They still, even, we're now year 5, 6, or whatever it is of Brett Brown, they don't run any pick and roll in the half court, and that's basketball's most common action. That's every team runs that. You and I could meet for the first time and start running it on the playground 5 minutes later. That's just, the way it works. And they just don't use that. It's not a part of it. They do a lot of motion-based, a lot of movement, a lot of screening and things like that to get guys open. Now, what I would like to see is in the half court is this is where I want to see him pull the occasional jump shot. Doesn't necessarily need to be three-pointers, but at least dribble into a jumper. Take one out of the post now and again. When it gets swung to him and he's got that 15, 18-footer, at least take it. Because what happens for him is when you're not a threat to even shoot it, never mind make it, but he's not even going to shoot, that makes it so hard to score on NBA defenses in the half court because they just pack it in and say, hey, we're not even going to worry about you because we know if you get it, all you're going to do is drive to the basket, and more likely, because you can't get that big head of steam because you're in the half court, you're just going to pass it off. So it really starts to become a 4-on-5 game.
Yeah, and I think if they can utilize that pick and roll just a little bit more frequently, it would make a big difference. I love how the Lakers have been using the pick and roll. Dwight Howard, Anthony Davis, they'll set the pick, and they roll a straight line down the paint. Like, it is the tightest roll I've ever seen in a pick and roll. It's just as soon as the screen is set, they are going a beeline to the rim. And even when Embiid does set a screen, you just don't see that type of play, and it sounds minor, but it's a big deal.
No, it's a huge deal. And when you're going to run pick and roll like that, you like from Embiid and Horford, if he's the other guy who you're running with as the second big, that they can both pop because that gives the defense better. We got to defend both. But it requires that the roll man rolls hard. And that's something Joel Embiid has never done in his career. He's never really been asked to do it. And if he's no threat, like you mentioned, Anthony Davis, Dwight Howard, JaVale McGee, whoever's running it with LeBron, they're going hard to that rim. And there might be contact, there might be whatever else comes, but they're going to play right through that. And LeBron, much like Simmons is, big, skillful enough to see over any trap that the defense throws, any of those arms, find those guys through the trees near the basket. But you've got to have that roll man who's committed to it. And I just don't know if Embiid's that guy. You would much rather, pop back out or do kind of one of those lazy rolls, which turns into a post up off a switch or something like that versus that good hard roll to the rim. So it really works on both ends there.
Yeah, and the one thing, like we talked about this yesterday, Keith Smith, Yahoo Sports, covers the NBA with us here. I tweeted out that imagine being talented enough. Ben Simmons could be the MVP of the league if he was like he is against Cleveland or some of these other teams. When he puts 34 up, when he feels like taking the ball to the basket with aggression. There are the nights he shows he doesn't have to shoot the ball if he's aggressive and gets to the line. He has those nights in him. And it's like, imagine having that kind of talent and yet not utilizing it every single night that you can. That is the mind-boggling part to me. And I guess it's where guys like you and everybody who covers this league can't figure out why it is so infrequent that we see that night from him.
Yeah, and it's not just him, it's Embiid as well. It's the two of them. That the fact that they are so naturally gifted as basketball players. They're two guys that should be, 25 each a night. Simmons should be threatening triple-doubles. Embiid should be, 15 rebounds a night, 3-4 blocks. And it's always good to see them bring it when they really need to. But the challenge is, then you're like, well, you can do it. Why do you not do it? And it shouldn't have to take guys like Charles Barkley and Shaq calling out Joel Embiid and saying, hey, you just don't want it every single night. That's why you're not, a truly great player in this league, because if you're not bringing it. And maybe he's starting to realize that. Now, I think part of that has been, I don't want to say he plays cautious on the court, but I wonder if part of it is, hey, if I go this hard, I don't know if I'm going to make it through 82 games and then another, 15 to 20 games in the postseason. So I really got to kind of, it's a little bit of self-preservation. But with a guy like Simmons, you really start to wonder, well, you can do these things. What makes me worried with him is when he does these massive scoring nights, you mentioned Cleveland. Well, I'm pretty sure I might be able to get points on Cleveland. That's how bad their defense is. So you start to look at it and say, all right, so you're piling up these huge stat nights against these bad teams. Let's do it against a good team. And what I hold to is you cannot have in the playoffs, like he did against Boston a couple years ago, a game where you show up and you're barely on the court and no one knows because you scored 1 point and you made no impact at all.
Right.
You have another playoff game like that, people are really going to start to doubt what his ceiling is as a player.
Well, and Keith, a lot of Sixer fans were like, now Charles and Shaq need to call Ben Simmons out. And my answer to that is, I mean, I don't know that. I mean, Joel, I thought handled it very well. He said, I listened to you guys. I was appreciative of you, telling me this. And I thought he handled it great. And then, of course, he has a big night the next night. And it makes it look like, see, look, he motivated Joel. I don't know that Ben is motivated by personal achievement. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think if somebody called him out like that, I just don't think Ben is one of these guys. It's like, I want to score 38 points. And hey, I think he is more team oriented. And in his mind, his job is to make other people look better. And that's why we get frustrated.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I don't think Ben Simmons is that guy who's going to say, give it to me, I'm going to go score a bunch of points. I think you're absolutely right. As odd as it is because of his physical profile, I think if Ben Simmons was 6 foot to 6'2", we would feel very differently about him as a basketball player with the way he plays, because it would be, he's that throwback point guard. He gets you set up. He's just running the team. What an efficient guy. Just gets you into your sets, plays good defense, and that's it. And everyone would feel differently. But it's because he's 6'10", and he can rebound, and he can pass, and he can score when he wants to, that we find ourselves wanting more and feeling more of him. But he has more of that mindset of that pure traditional point guard type player.
And the Simmons dynamic is so interesting, Keith, but I don't know what the answer is for the Sixers, and I don't know if it's a matter of Ben and Joe or Brett Brown, but how the Sixers are made up from top to bottom. I want to go to Tobias Harris because there has been a lot of questions at times of his aggressiveness or lack thereof. And I haven't seen any indecisiveness or hesitation from that man in quite some time. I think he is headed to the All-Star game this year. What are your thoughts about Tobias Harris so far?
Yeah, I think there's a good chance he's going to finally make that All-Star team, too. I think I got a chance. I'm in Orlando, so I got a chance to see Tobias Harris kind of come into his own as a player here with the Magic. And what was always frustrating with him was he was a guy who sometimes would go out and score 30 points, but you'd look up and be like, he has 30? I don't remember any of these because they just didn't feel like there was an impact. now this year it feels like he's making an impact, feels like he's really figured out in a very large sense. I think he's taken on the role that Jimmy Butler really had for that team last year of give me the ball, I'm going to go score when we need it. I look at that game against Boston the other night. Embiid had the monster game, but it was Harris who made the big plays throughout the game. Anytime the Celtics made a run, Harris answered them with a big basket the other way, and that was coming off of he really shot poorly in the first half of that game. So instead of seeing him shrink and kind of go away from it, it was really great to see him be super aggressive and say, you know what, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to be that guy. I think this has clearly been, he was good last year, but this has clearly been his best season in the NBA to date.
I want to go back to Ben and ask you a question because he has made a couple of threes. He shot the one in the preseason that he made. He shot another one that he made, and he shot a third one that he made. So he's been virtually perfect on all three shots that he's actually attempted from real three-point land. My question for you is then, watching him and his stroke and how he, shoots the basketball, why does he do it so infrequently, in your opinion? That he's made them. He doesn't look like ridiculous shooting it. He's got nice form. I mean, it's not perfect, but when you see him shoot, what do you think is holding him back from doing more of it? If he's making the shot. So it's not like he's shooting these up and clanking them. He's swishing them. So after watching him shoot and make, what do you think is holding him back from doing it more?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One is I think he needs to be incredibly wide open. I'm talking guys are barely in the same half of the court as him. He's not going to pull it if there's somebody in his face. He's definitely not taking them off the dribble. Nothing like that is coming from him. So he's going to have to be really, really wide open to feel confident even taking it. And then beyond that, I think it goes back to what we said before. I have to wonder if there's still self-doubt in his mind of, I don't know if I'm going to make this or not. And if he's got that doubt in his mind, then I think what you worry about is, well, then it's not the good shot. I want to make sure I get us a good shot. I'm going to make sure we get in there. What I think is important, even if, let's say, he misses his next 10, as long as he takes them, I just want to see him take one every game or so, or at least, if not three-pointers, like I said, those longer jump shots. When they're into them, he doesn't need to force them. He doesn't need to be taking pull-ups or, wild fadeaways.
Well, Keith, I don't want me to interrupt, but let me ask you this then.
Sure.
Brett Brown said, I want to see him take one a game or one shot a game. If he doesn't do it and there's no repercussion, is that telling you that maybe Brown isn't holding him accountable enough for not listening to him and saying, I want you to shoot one?
Yeah, I think there is a little bit of that. I think especially on those ones where I probably could have shot it. It would have been a fine shot. And what I would be tempted to do is if you're playing Cleveland, let's say, and he has one where, he should have taken that was there. It wasn't, super duper wide open, but he should have taken it. Pull him out of the game. Sit him down and say, you have to take that shot. Because if it's Cleveland, you're going to win that game anyway. Who really cares? You're not going to do that in the fourth quarter against Milwaukee because, now the game's on the line. But if it's a winnable game where you're fine and you're going to get that win, pull them out. Those are the teaching moments, and that's a chance to hold them accountable and really to establish, I'm holding you accountable in a good way because I trust you. I have the faith that you're going to make it. We need you to take that shot.
I would almost say, Keith, a game against the Bucks in the fourth quarter is the time to sit him. Like, you are a liability in the fourth quarter against the number one team against the East. You're not taking open shots. Take a seat, sir.
Sure.
Yeah, the challenge is there. Can you imagine? I mean, I can only imagine what it would
Yes, I
would be
can.
the next day. They lose a game, and it's Simmons was on the bench because he passed up a three-pointer, where they lost by one, in the final seconds. So that would be, that's a little bit tough. And not that NBA coaches coach around what we say in the media, but they're aware of it. They know that in their end game is to try to win.
I want to get your opinion real fast, Keith Smith, on Zion, fully weight-bearing, no return date set. Are we looking at a situation much like the Sixers where they decide, you know what, we're really bad? Maybe it's not such a bad idea if Zion doesn't play at all this year.
Yeah, I think if we haven't seen him by the All-Star break, I think there's a chance we don't see him at all this season. I think that's going to be – that team looks primed to do a pretty major sell-off of a lot of their pieces. They really only have a couple guys that they're not going to be overly interested in trading. One is Zion, the other Brandon Ingram. Everybody else seems that they're willing to listen. They're even willing to listen on Drew Holiday and J.J. Redick, who they just signed this summer. It just hasn't come together for them. So I think if they do some trades by the All-Star break, which is David Griffin really saying, all right, hey, I'm going to tear this down even more. I'm going to get more assets in here. Then we go into the All-Star break. If we still haven't seen Zion by then, I think there's a good chance we're not going to see him on the court this season.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because a lot of people thought that could have been a playoff team, and not only because they got Zion, but because of the fact that they brought in a J.J. Redick, and that kind of signaled that, hey, we need some veteran pieces here because we think we're pretty good. The fact that they're 6-22 with what's left over, even without Zion, I think is a pretty bad sign because they have more talent than a 6-22 team, I think. I saw them Friday night, and I'm thinking, how is this team so bad? But it'll be interesting to see if Drew Holiday, when the trade season gets here, and then I guess on the other side, you see a lot of Fultz. They're in the 8th spot right now, and we like to kind of check in and see where he's progressing to. I have a bet with somebody. He's got to score 12 points a game. Should I back out of that bet now, or do you think he gets over 12 by the end of the season?
Yeah, I haven't looked where he's at right now. Do you know what he's at right now?
I think he is right. The other day, he was
10.
right at 12. I think he was literally on 12 on the nose the last time. Let me see. Where's Fultz at? He is averaging 11.7.
Yeah, hang in there. He's going to get over 12 then. It's that's close enough that I feel confident. He is. You can now see game by game, he is taking over more of the offense. They're starting to run a lot more through him. What was happening, kind of similar to Ben Simmons, early in the year, everything was in transition for Fultz. And he was coming up, and in the half court, he was getting them into their sets, or he was making plays off the dribble but passing a lot and those kind of things. Now they're really kind of turning the keys over to him and saying, hey, you're our best guy with the ball in your hands on this roster by a mile. Go make things happen for us. And they're a pretty limited offensive group here in Orlando. So I think you're definitely going to be – it wouldn't surprise me if he finishes around 13, 14 and up somewhere around 5, 6 assists because he's playing really, really good. And again, not hesitant taking the jumper anymore, especially those mid-rangers. He'll pull up. He shoots a really nice fadeaway. He's starting to go to this move where he dribbles hard into the paint, and then he just shoots this turnaround, which is really nice. He gets up pretty high, and he's pretty strong, so it's tough to –
That was the shot that made him the number one pick, really.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he looks a lot – if we could throw away the first 2 years and everything, you would look at it and say, all right, I can see why this guy was the number one pick. He would just be another guy where you'd say, yeah, there's bumps, there's all these things that go on with these young point guards, but I see all the potential in the world because he is really, really playing good basketball right now.
All right, I'll keep that bet. Sports Bash Live, he's Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. We talk NBA Wednesday nights right here on the Sports Bash. It's Sixers Heat tonight. That's a 7 o'clock start. That's a tip that got moved up. It was a 7:30 originally. It is 7 o'clock. We have it for you on 97.3 ESPN. Thanks, Keith.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
And like all guests, Keith Smith appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.